Okay, here we have the meter cluster removed, and we have the cluster inlay kit. We'll check the contents, and we should have one cluster panel and the instruction manual. Okay, for the cluster panel kit, there's a separate unit for a manual transmission car and an automatic transmission car, and this is just the difference in the types of indicator warning lamps that are on the car, so make sure you select the correct one to use on your car. Inserted in the instruction manual are double-sided adhesive circles. These are specially used to hold the cluster panel overlay in. Okay, and we'll introduce the tools required for the installation, as we needed to remove the gauge cluster. We need the interior panel removal kit, tweezers to position the gauge cluster panel, and a set of gloves to keep oils and dirt free from the interior of the panel. The cluster is painted with special ink, and it is very easy to stain, so please do make sure you wear some kind of gloves or use very clean hands to work on it. Okay, so here we have the cluster. We will split the hood open on it. These are simply held on by plastic clips, and we are trying to split open is the black hood piece along with the front flexion window from the gauge cluster itself. Hold on the hood against the gauge cluster itself. Okay, we are going to remove each of the gauge cluster panels from the backing that supports it and aligns it. You can just simply press on each of the perforated areas. In the case of the Scion FRS, Toyota 86, and Subaru BRZ, there are 3 separate panels. Again, make sure you select the correct one for automatic or manual transmission cluster. And marked on the instruction manual are positions in which these circles need to go on. They need to be installed pretty accurately on the back side of this cluster panel, just to make sure that the needles do not interfere with the operation. So here we are installing each of these adhesives in the correct position. Once on, they'll have these red lines around it, which if you take the backing off the adhesive will come off. Okay, so we have all of the adhesives attached to the back of the meter cluster panel, and now we will remove the backing. Sure you're working in a very clean environment, because you don't want to introduce any dust to either the cluster covers or the gauge panel itself. The gauge cluster on the FRS and BRZ have stepping motor needles, so you don't have to worry about needles positions changing, but there is a stop near the 0 and at the limit, and you don't want to twist the needle beyond that point or it'll change the calibration. But you can use your hand to move the needle as needed to position the overlay when you're inserting them. We found that the installation of the speedometer, you twist the needle to about where the 100 mile per hour location is and slide it around into position. Make sure that each of the numbers, numerals, and all of the warning indicators are exactly in position. So when the gauge cluster lights up at night, you won't have drop shadows or highlights. Okay, so putting on each of the gauge cluster panel, make sure you slip the front side or the leading side underneath the bezel of the needle so you can slip the back side around the top of the needle, because the hole is made very tightly so that it's an exact fit. And when positioning, take a look at all the numbers and indicator, and make sure you center all of the numerals onto the same backlighting on the original cluster. Okay, so the most tricky one again is the one with double needle. Okay, careful enough. So we'll go in, slip right over the centerpiece. Okay, once you have completed the installation, please check that the needles move freely and in between the needle is completely floating on top of the gauge cluster inlay for each of the needles. If there's any resistance, the indicator might show differently, so to prevent miscalibration of the needle, make sure that it operates. Okay, once the inserts are all assembled and needles checked, the needles will self-center with the ignition switch to 0 again, but to prevent any unusual loads initially, set them gently back to 0 position, and we're ready to put the cover back on. Plastic clips. We're ready to put it back in. Installation back into the car is exactly removable. We put the along with all the plastic pins and screws, and we're ready to go.